Hey y'all, I'm Hanny XOXO and welcome to or back to my channel. Hi, hello, and welcome again. I'm Hanny and I love to crochet. I also run a small business called xoxocrochetwhimsy where I sell all of the plushies that I make at in-person markets. And speaking of markets, I actually have a market coming up in a month that I really got to get to prepping for, so I thought that it could be fun today to share my market prep, display, and pricing plans with y'all. So I will definitely let y'all know every single plushie that I'm planning to make and bring to my market with me, and of course I'll have all of the patterns linked in the description box in case y'all want to make the same plushies for your markets as well. I'll also fill y'all in on some market tips that I have from my own experience, as well as some mistakes that I did make when I was still a market noob, and how now I've corrected those mistakes to further maximize my profits at my future markets. So whether you're brand new to selling crochet plushies at markets and trying to do some brainstorming, or maybe you're currently working on your market prep and just needing some crochet background noise, or maybe you know nothing about crochet or markets and just want to know about the behind the scenes of it all, I know that today will be such a fun day for all of us. And just a quick note before we get into things, I actually vended at this exact same market exactly a year ago, and I also made a little retro recap video for that market, basically just explaining my experience at the market, my results, all that good stuff. So I definitely do recommend going to watch that video either before or after this one, since I might make some references to that video in that market in this video, but obviously for time's sake, I don't have time to go over every single nitty-gritty detail of the market again. So if you do want some more background info, some more context into the market, definitely go check out that video. Now let's get right into things. So my market prep plan is really based around how I'm deciding to display my plushies at a market, which also kind of has to do with how I'm planning to price my plushies at a market. So definitely my prep plan, display plan, pricing strategy all coincide, all have to do with one another, but I definitely always kind of make a rough general display layout plan before I actually get into the nitty-gritty details of my prep plan. And my market display is actually a bit unconventional compared to the other crochet market divas that I've seen out there, because I actually don't use any table space at all, because I was able to acquire a TY Beanie Baby display from Joann when they had their closing at a business sale. So that is actually how I display my plushies. And the way I like to plan out my market display is by which plushies I want to put on each tier level of my TY display. Honestly, y'all, the first time that I ever brought my TY display to a market with me, I did not plan out or even try to visualize how I was gonna lay out all of my plushies on the display. So when I ended up arriving at the market, I just kind of had to throw all the plushies into whichever compartments they could fit in, and this just ended up being a pretty big problem. I mean, one, just with disorganization of the plushies, but the biggest problem that I kind of created for myself was the spots that I decided to put the plushies in. So basically my TY display, the tallest tier on it is about 5 feet above the ground, and it has 4 other tiers underneath it, and each tier is about a foot apart, I would say. So if the top tier is 5 feet off the ground, the next one is 4 feet off the ground, then 3 feet, 2 feet, Y'all get the point. So basically where I messed up was, for some reason, I decided that it was such a great idea to put my $5 minis in the second tier from the top, so like 4 feet off the ground. And the problem with this was that younger children could not see any of those items at all. And every single tier under it had more expensive product in it. Not anything like super high priced or expensive, but I would say like $8 to $15 items were in the other shelves. And so, of course, the kids were seeing my display and immediately picking out one of the, say, like $10 plushies, because they couldn't see any of the $5 plushies, which were way up at the top. And at first thought, y'all might be thinking, well, isn't that a good idea? Because then the kids will pick out a more expensive plushie and their parents might buy it for them. And well, that would be a really big might, because I feel like a big problem for me in that situation was that these children were not coming alone. I mean, obviously they weren't coming by themselves, but I mean, they were coming like with multiple siblings. Like, these were not only children, they had many, many siblings. And of course, if one of the children wants a plushie, all of their siblings are also gonna want plushies, and they're all gonna pick out the more expensive plushies since those are the ones that they can see. And of course, if like 5 children each pick out a $10 plushie, it's gonna be like $50 for the parents, and they're not gonna be willing to spend that. And if I would have had the $5 plushies at eye level for those younger children, then they may have all picked out those $5 plushies, and the parents may have been a lot more willing to spend $25 on their kids instead of $50 on their kids. So after I noticed that this seemed to be a repeat problem, and I also just was not selling any minis at all really, I decided to switch around my display layout, and I moved those minis from the second tier to the top to the second tier from the bottom, so that it was only like 2 feet or so above the ground. And oh my gosh, y'all, I sell to so many more multi-children families now ever since I started doing that. My profits have also gone up so much, like honestly kind of a crazy amount, just from making that small switch. Plus, I also almost always sell out of all my minis now, as well as my other higher priced expensive items too. So this is where my first tip comes in, which is that in general, if you are working with height for your market displays, which by the way, I do highly, highly, highly recommend that you do work somewhat with height at your markets. Again, I know that my setup is unconventional. I'm in no way saying that y'all have to go out there and get a TY display, but even if you just have a tiered shelf or something like that to display your plushies at markets, highly recommend. Height always helps people to see your plushies more clearly. But on to the actual tip, I highly, highly recommend that you have your lower priced items in eyesight of everyone. Make sure that they're accessible to everyone of all heights, that everyone can see those items. And then your higher priced attention grabbing items will want to go to the very top of your display, either if you're like me and you have a top tier on your display where you can put those items, or if you have a booth where you can hang up those items somehow from your booth, that would be super cool. But those pieces are great to have up high, because even if they don't sell, they will pull people into your booth. Again, this is all just from my own personal experience selling plushies at markets, but I highly, highly recommend that you do have those lower priced items in eyesight of everyone, because I mean, I'm just telling y'all from my experience, when I switched up where I had my lower priced plushies, I started making so many more sales and ultimately just a larger profit. So in a nutshell, my market display strategy is to display all of my plushies in order of descending price, with the highest priced items at the top of my display and the lowest priced items at the bottom of my display. For this market, I'm planning on having 3 pricing categories: a $5 category, a $8 category, and a $13 category. And of course, this pricing strategy does actually have some research to back it up, because the last time I did this market, my best sellers were my $5 minis, and not one person, no one, not anyone, was willing to spend more than $13 on a plushie. So that is why I'm making my price range that $5 to $13 sweet spot. And that actually leads me into my second tip, which is that always make sure that you keep track of and document what you bring to your markets and what sells, because this information can be so useful for your future markets. Say you're in a similar situation to what I'm in right now, where you're vending at a market that you vended at in the past. Well, it's so easy to create a market plan, pricing strategy, all that good stuff by just looking at your past data, analyzing all of it, and deciding what you want to do. I mean, you would not want to just spend all of your time making like $50 dragons if at your markets you know that people aren't willing to spend more than $15 on a plushie. And I would not know about my $5 to $13 sweet spot that I have at this market if I wasn't keeping track of all of the data at the market from last year. And now back to how I'm planning out my market display. So my second tier from the bottom is gonna be those $5 minis. The middle tier is going to be my $8 tier, and then the second tier from the top is gonna be my $13 tier. So just like I mentioned before, descending in price from that $13 tier down to that $5 tier. And y'all might be wondering about that top tier and that bottom tier. Well, as I mentioned in my first tip, I always recommend putting your big, higher priced, attention grabbing items up high. And of course, I'm going to be taking my own advice on that one. So my top tier is going to have all of my larger attention grabbing items. And I'm actually not going to be specifically adding any of these items to my market prep plan, just because I already have some large attention grabbers in my inventory bin just from previous markets. And I also just enjoy making larger pieces just like for my own fun, just on my own time. So even if I don't mention specifically making any attention grabbers for this market, just know that I do already have some in storage, and I'm probably gonna end up making more just when I get bored with making minis or something. And then moving down to that bottom tier, I honestly usually keep this tier empty because I'm always just so fearful that it's either gonna get kicked or someone's gonna spill something in it or some tragedy is gonna happen to that bottom tier. So I usually just put like some free stickers down there. But I think I'm gonna be brave this time, y'all, since this market is indoors especially. It's not exposed to the elements or anything. I think that I will be putting some plushies on that bottom tier, but those plushies are just gonna be ones that like don't really fit into the other categories that I'm making. So ones that are just one-off items, mostly just leftovers from my previous markets. Again, stuff from my inventory bin that's not an attention grabber, that's a smaller item. That's the kind of stuff that I'm gonna put at the very bottom. So that's my general market display plan, basically just having those random leftovers in the bottom tier, and then those three very well organized by plushie type and price tiers, and then that very top tier with my attention grabbing pieces. So now let's just quickly wrap back around to my pricing strategy, because I already told y'all the first kind of part of my pricing strategy, which is basically just to know your audience, know how much they're willing to spend. But the next part of my pricing strategy, and this is for this specific market. I do not do this at every single market, but for this market, I do like to pre-plan discounts. That's why I also have pretty specific price categories for this market, because honestly, I've never done this at a market before where I have very distinct price categories, price tiers, whatever you want to call it. Usually I honestly just kind of price plushies like as I make them, as I'm having fun with them, and I end up with a wide variety of prices at the very end. But what pushed me to try out this method for this market was actually my experience that I had last year at this market, specifically with almost every single person asking me for a discount. And of course, me being me and being such a people pleaser and not having a backbone, I was giving out those discounts like candy and literally sent my profits into the negatives. So this time around, I have strategically set discounts myself that I've already done all the math on and everything so that I know that they won't be cutting into my profit or anything like that. So I offer 2 different discounts, one on my $8 items and one on my $13 items. So basically, if you purchase 2 $8 items, you get $1 off. So you'd only pay $15 instead of $16. And then it's the same thing for my $13 items. So if you purchase 2 of them, you'll only pay $25 instead of $26. So, you know, nothing too special or crazy. But I am really hoping that setting my own discounts this time around will help me to stay strong when people do ask for discounts, so that I can send them in the direction of my $8 items or $13 items. If a discount is just like what they're looking for, they can get it in those items. But I know that I cannot offer any more discounts like I did last time, because this is a business and at the end of the day, I gotta be making some profit. My items are also already very fairly priced, in my opinion. My family and friends and everyone, even people at markets, have actually told me that my prices are too low, but I believe that they're very fairly priced. So I definitely know that I just cannot go lower than what I already have my prices set at. So I definitely gotta stick to my guns this time around. And that leads me into my third market tip, which is that if you know or have a very strong feeling that people are gonna be asking for discounts at your market and you don't wanna have to be mean and tell them no, then make sure to pre-plan your own discounts ahead of time. So then you don't exactly have to tell them no to a discount, but instead you can redirect them towards your plushies that you do offer discounts on. And also, like, by no means do I believe that telling a customer no to a discount is actually mean or anything like that. Of course, if you are a stronger person than I am, definitely say no to discounts. At the end of the day, we are running a business that we already spend so much of our time, money, efforts, pain, arthritis, everything on. So we definitely deserve to make our worth. But if you are interested in making some pre-planned discounts like what I'm doing, then definitely just make sure that you're not taking off too much from what the actual price would be. You can totally copy me if you want with the 2 $8 items for $15 or 2 $13 items for $25, since in both of those cases you're only taking off $1, which shouldn't cut into your profit too much. Or sometimes I've also, when I've done bigger items, I've done 2 $23 items for $45. But basically, just like for the gist of it, is to not discount too much. Like, say you want to do 2 $7 items for $10. That might not be the smartest decision, just because every time someone would buy those plushies on that discount, they'd be taking off $4 whole from that total price, which can really add up. I mean, unless, say, you took your $5 items and priced them up to $7 and then did that kind of discount, that might actually be a good business decision, because then you'd be gaining $2 every time someone bought an individual item. And if they bought it on the discount, no harm, no foul, because you were already planning on selling those items for only $5 anyway. But then, what if someone comes up to your booth and all they have is a $5 bill? And then they're like, I can't buy anything here. Anyway, a lot to think about, but I don't want to make this whole video just about pricing. So now let's get into everyone's favorite part, the plushies I'm planning to bring. I'll go in order from my $5 to $8 to $13 plushies that I'm planning to prep for my market. Also, each tier on my display does have 4 compartments, so I'll let you know specifically which plushies I'm planning to put in each of those compartments, since I do kind of like to group my plushies up by what I like to call collections or themes, I suppose. And again, not every single plushie that I'm planning to bring to my market is going to be mentioned on my prep list, because some of those plushies are already made and just leftovers from my previous markets, so I don't need to include them on my prep list. But if y'all are interested in seeing every single plushie that I'm wanting to bring to the market with me, then definitely stay tuned for weeks to come, because right before the market, I will definitely be making a video about every single plushie that I'm taking with me. Starting with my $5 tier, my baby sea creatures always do so well at markets. So in my first $5 compartment, I will have some sea creature cuties, and I found that I can fit about 15 minis in each of my compartments. So I'm planning to, of course, bring 15 baby sea creatures, but specifically, I'm planning to bring 5 baby sea turtles, 5 baby stingrays, and 5 baby octos. For my second $5 compartment, I'm going to do scrunchies, and I'm probably gonna put about 15 scrunchies in that compartment, more or less, we'll see. But this market is actually the reason why I make scrunchies now, because I missed out on a sale at this market last year because a woman really wanted crochet scrunchies, and of course, I wasn't making them at the time, but now I do, and they've definitely become one of my best sellers ever since then. So shout out to that woman for pushing me to start making scrunchies. And that actually leads me into my fourth market tip, which is to take notes at every single market. Whenever someone asks you if you carry a specific product, plushie, color, animal, whatever it might be, write that down. I personally just use the Notes app on my phone, since I already have my phone open for Square at markets anyway, but I also always have my market notebook handy just in case the checkout does get busy, so that I can physically document whatever note I gotta take and keep it moving. But no matter how you want to document things, I mean, heck, you could even take a video of yourself telling yourself what to make in the future. That sounds really cool and fun too. But no matter how you want to do it, just for sure, make sure that you're taking notes at your markets, because it can help you so much to access in the future when you're doing markets again. For example, I was very easily able to access my notes on my Notes app of my phone, and that's how I was able to find out that people last time at this market requested scrunchies, Hello Kitty, penguins, turtles, and mermaids, all of which you'll find out I am planning to prep. Well, except for Hello Kitty, because I'm not trying to get into all that IP drama, but you know what I mean. But back to my $5 items, I did want to make some items that gave like really springy vibes, since my market is in April. So I wanted to make 15 spring minis, and specifically, I think I'm gonna make 5 baby bees, 5 baby butterflies, and 5 popping mushrooms. And then on to my final $5 compartment, also kind of sticking with that spring theme, spring vibes. I actually impulsively purchased this pattern, this 3-in-1 Market Minis pattern, about a year ago, and I just haven't had the time yet to give it a fair chance to perform at markets. So I think I'm gonna bring 15 of those cuties to my market this time around. I think all 3 of the plushies included in that pattern are super adorable. I'm specifically planning to bring 5 of the froggies, 5 of the duckies, and 5 of the bears. And now onto my $8 tier, or my 2 for $15 tier. In the first $8 compartment, I'm planning to have chickens, as chickens were my bestseller for sure last time I did this market. So my $8 items, I find, depending on what kind of item they are, I can usually fit about 9 of them nicely into each compartment. So I am planning to bring 9 chickens with me, all in different colors. And now moving on to my second $8 compartment, I'm planning to have axolotls, because axolotls are just one of my best sellers in general throughout all of my markets, and I'm definitely planning to bring pink and teal axolotls, and this time around I might also experiment with purple axolotls, but we will see. Again, I'm planning to bring 9 of those. And onto my third $8 compartment, I'm planning to have fidget toys. So I absolutely love the fidget crochet patterns by Cable and Canvas. And I'm, for this market specifically, wanting to bring 5 of the large popping mushrooms, 5 of the kittens popping out of teacups, and then 5 of the frogs popping out of lily pads. And finally, onto my final $8 compartment, I want to bring those spring vibes again onto my $8 tier. So I want to have 9 springy $8 items. So I'm planning to have 3 sitting bees, 3 chubby frogs, and 3 duckies and frog hats. And now on to my $13 or 2 for $25 tier. For the first $13 compartment, I'm planning to have turtles, since I had so many turtle lovers come up to the booth last year at this market. So specifically, I'm planning to bring 3 cheeky turtles and 3 sea turtles, since I do find that about 6 to 8 of my $13 items are able to fit nicely in a compartment together. And my second $13 compartment is going to be pet themed. So I'm planning to bring 4 loaf cats and 4 puppies. And honestly, y'all, I did not sell a single loaf cat last year at this market, but I don't know, I just really enjoy making them personally. I have so much fun with them. Plus, they also literally sell out at every single one of my other markets. So I just want to try them out again at this market. Maybe it was a fluke last time around, but I just gotta try them out at least one more time before I completely give up on bringing them to this market. And then as for the puppies, I just thought it could be fun, instead of having all loaf kittens in that compartment, to combine it. Maybe people just aren't cat people who come to this market. Maybe they'd rather have a puppy. But I have actually never crocheted a puppy before, and I'm still actively trying to find which pattern I want to use. I did find one that I really, really like, but I'm just not 100% sure about it yet. So if y'all are looking below, like trying to find a puppy pattern and don't see one listed yet, it's just because I haven't found one yet. My third $13 compartment is a bit more random. It doesn't really have like a theme to it or anything, not really a collection like my other ones have been. But in this compartment, I'm planning to have 3 penguins and 3 butterflies. And the penguins is because I actually had a lot of people wanting penguins at this market last year. They were one of my best sellers, even though this market takes place in the spring. I don't know what it is. I guess people just really love penguins. And then as for the butterflies, that one's just a little more random, without any rhyme or reason, really, other than that they do give off spring vibes, of course, but mostly just because the butterflies are my own pattern, and I do just love to show off and display my own patterns at markets when I get the chance to. And my final $13 compartment has got to be my favorite one, because it is mystical themed. So I'm planning to have 3 unicorns and 3 mermaids in this compartment. I had so many people requesting mermaids last year when I did this market, so I definitely wanted to make sure to have some to bring to it this year. And then unicorns are just one of my best sellers at all of my other markets. I'm not kidding y'all. I've never left a market with a unicorn still in my inventory bin. They always sell out at all of my markets, but I did not bring any unicorns to this market last year. I didn't get to have a chance to try them out at this market yet, so that's why I'm bringing them this time around to see how they sell. And that is everything from my market display to pricing strategy to prep plan, with a few tips thrown in here and there along the way, which, by the way, just a quick overview of those tips. Number 1, when using height, make sure your lower priced items are at a lower height and your higher priced attention grabbers are high up. Number 2, make sure to track your inventory and sales at every single market. Number 3, decide beforehand if you're willing to do discounts, and if you are, make sure to plan them out ahead of time. Number 4, always be taking notes during your markets, especially if people are making requests for certain products. And did I really not make a 5th tip? I'm just realizing, oh my gosh, but I feel like we can't just have 4 tips. We need to have 5. So tip number 5, just have fun at your markets and use them as learning experiences. Honestly, as much as I can sit here and tell y'all about my experience and my tips that I have, the way that I feel like I really learned the most about markets and am now able to strategically come up with way better market prep plans than I did when I first started is just from experiencing markets myself. So definitely, tip number 5, get out there, have fun, and go attend some markets, because it really is just such a fun time. And that brings us to the end of today's video. I hope that y'all had fun today. Hopefully some of my tips helped you out, or even just hearing about my market plan, the kinds of plushies I'm planning to take, my pricing strategy and whatnot. I know that whenever I watch videos and listen to Crochet Divas going over their market plans, it always helps me with brainstorming for my own market plan, or maybe I was just able to be a friend and chat with you while you crochet. But no matter your reasoning, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. I would really appreciate it. Also, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you do want to see more of my face on your feed. And if you want to see my face on all your favorite platforms, make sure to follow me everywhere. I'll have them all linked down below in the description. And of course, if you made it to the very, very end of today's video, make sure to leave me a comment down below. I want to know what your number 1 piece of market advice is. Or if you're more of a shy girly like I can tend to be, or maybe you just don't have anything to say but still want to show the channel some support, leave me an emoji down below. It can be any kind of, let's say, spring emoji. So I want to see those flowers, chicks, frogs, anything that has to do with spring in honor of my spring themed market. I really hope that y'all had fun hanging out with me today, because I had such a blast hanging out with all of y'all making a market plan. And as always, have a magical rest of your day. Bye-bye. And as a thank you for staying all the way until the very end of the video, here is a sneak peek into what my inventory bin is looking like. We got a giant axolotl, we got some really cute one-off items, we even got some cupcakes in here, and some old Halloween items. I don't even know what all we got up in here, but definitely stay tuned for weeks to come and we will go through this entire bin.